What you got, Leela?
I got one. Devi, what's the deal with all of these like channeled teachings? Like
Channeled?
yeah, you know, like Conversation with God, Course in Miracles. There's that Seth, guy that was channeled. And is there anything to that? I mean,
Well, a lot of people, what's his name? Edgar Casey. He channeled some incredible things. Do you remember what he was told? That in his past life, he had a great gift, that he had done a lot of spiritual practice for many years. And and in that great gift, he did something very, very bad in the life before the last one. So he was going to be using his gifts for others, but he wouldn't even know what he's doing. As not exactly a punishment, but Okay. And a lot of people are being channeled by someone else. If you're born with a certain openness that you can do that, not everyone is. So it's a great blessing that you have the openness. And then but we don't know who is speaking through them or teaching through them. And Guruji told us to always be very careful of those, because as long as the human mind is being used, the possibility of error is always there. Okay? So if the person is not an enlightened being yet, there's a possibility for error.
Which person? The one speaking through, or?
Probably the body being used.
Oh, probably the body.
So why would they use that person as the mind?
Because it's very hard to find enlightened beings walking around the earth.
True.
Have you ever thought of that? There aren't too many.
Sure.
Would that be
Yeah.
considered a city?
No, a siddhi is if you can, just look in the Yoga Sutras, and the siddhis are listed, but the siddhis are, you should be able to do that yourself. If you're high enough, you don't need to have someone channeling through you. You do it yourself. Okay. So it's sometimes different things happen. I think I told you that one time. I must have been very open to Swami Rama, and it was I've been with him several lives, many lives. And in the last one, apparently, I didn't have to come to this life, but he asked if I would to help him. I didn't know any of this at the time, okay? So we were still in Glenview, like the second year I was with him or something, and he gave me lots of work to do. So I was very, very tired, and it was around 3 p.m, and I knew that there was a lecture that night, there was a bed, I had to cook a supper, there was a lot to do, okay? I was typesetting a book at the time. So I passed him in the hallway, and he said, guests are coming. And I said, oh, Swamiji, I'll get ready. He says, it's okay. I had Samskriti do something. You can rest. I said, really? I can rest? He said, yes. I said, Swamiji, can I go to sleep? He said, yes. Well, it was this great big room, which was the lecture hall. But above it was like a little, what do you call it, a choir loft? It's like you could see over the top, just a small place. So I told him, could I sleep up there? We had a lot of cushions and things. He says, yes, go ahead. So I went to lay down, and when I'm tired, I fall right to sleep. Okay. So I'm sleeping, and suddenly, as if Swamiji was next to me, he's saying, Sri, come now, I need you now. And I jumped up, and I'm looking around, and he's not there. I don't know, so this is very silly. So I sat back down, and as I'm just going to lie down again, Tree, now, come now. So I ran down the stairs, ran down the hallway, knocked on his door, and he opens it with this big grin on, and all of his guests are standing there, and they're all going, oh, really? And Swamiji says, see, I told you. And I said, what, Swamiji, what? And he says, I just called you mentally, and they didn't believe I could do it. It was like shouting at me. So I said, what did you want? Swamiji says, no, you go back to sleep. So I did go back to sleep. But and he told me later that, highly born, that some people are very open to taking things. Many people are very closed to that. So you can't, work that easily with someone that's a little bit closed or doesn't want it or whatever. So, does that make sense for you?
Yes, thanks you.
Okay. So I guess I'm an open one. I've got nothing to say at this end, but I could listen. So.
If they're open to it, do they have a choice whether they want to be channeled or not?
I'm sure. Sure. I could have, for example, rolled over and said, "This is my sleep time, leave me alone." Once I knew he wasn't standing over me, because I thought he was standing right there. I could have done that. You always have freedom. In yoga, your freedom is never taken away.
But he still channeled you.
No,
You
he-
just didn't act on it.
Often, this happens both for Swami Jaidava and myself. When we're teaching, and we've got our notes, okay? And then something else comes out. We don't know where it came from, who said it. And Jaidava will say, "What did you talk about tonight?" And I'll say, "I don't remember." 5 minutes after I walk out of the room, okay? He says, "Oh, that happened to me yesterday." So we have to listen to the tape to hear what we said. That's Swami Rama, okay? If it's bad, it's me. But if it's good, that's Guruji, okay? Really? So that's one of the ways he works, and how it comes across. That it's not really us. We're tapping into universal consciousness. Okay? So you know everything too. We just occasionally need to be kicked in the pants and reminded of who we are, what we can do. We forget so easily, don't we? Forget who we are. So I'll tell you one thing, if you have an incredible experience of superconsciousness, it's a lot easier to remember when things get tough who you are. That's easier. When you're going day by day by day and you have hints about it here and there, it's a bit harder. So that's why we meditate, to tap into that universal consciousness, to know really who we really are. Where did we come from? Where are we going? And all this nonsense in between time, it's just kind of silly stuff, you know? True? Can you remember what you did 10 lives ago? What you thought on Thursday, the 29th of February?
No.
See?
Remember that this
Should
year.
get back to you.
You'll get back to me on that? Shouldn't we remember everything? We forget just about everything we've learned. And the biggest thing is we forgot who we are. So each time, I remember when I was much younger, you know, I had big blue eyes. And I'm not too tall, right? Kind of short. And I'm working with Swamiji one day, and I don't know if what he was doing, shaving or brushing his teeth or something or other, you know. And I said, "Swamiji, I wish I was tall and had long black hair and big brown eyes." And he threw down whatever he was doing, maybe a shaver. He threw it in the sink. He says, "Puh, that's what you had last life. And you wanted to be small with blue eyes." He says, "Are you never satisfied?" So I started to think, we're not, are we? We always want something else. We want to be who we're not. We want to live where we don't. We want something we can't afford. We're always doing something like that. So if we're in the spotlight, "Oh, I wish people weren't bugging me all the time. I just want to be quiet so no one knows me," right? Then you sing a song, you say, "Ooh, I want the whole world to hear my singing. I want to be on records. I want to be on TV." We're never happy. And I think we're never happy because we are a little bit unplugged from our source. So we're floating around, oh, maybe something here, maybe there, maybe there, maybe there. We forget who we are.
Why do we forget though?
Why do we forget?
I mean, I understand not, maybe consciously remembering all the details of all of my lifetimes. Because,
Yes.
I need to sort of focus on this one, but...
Yes.
Sort
of.
Well, yes. But why do we forget the most important thing?
Because if you remembered, you wouldn't be
Why do
here.
we feel like we have to relearn? over
Because you
and
have a body and an individual consciousness. You don't want to be lost. You want an identity. You want an ego. You want a personality. That gives you a body, it gives you a mind, and it puts you on Earth. Or maybe some other planets that we don't know about right now.
Mhm.
When
But
you
as-
remember who you are, you're not here.
True, I guess. But in the process, in the journey, as we hopefully evolve
Yes.
over time,
Yes.
can we not come with a conscious memory of, okay, this is why I'm here this time,
Yeah.
this is the work I'm continuing,
Yeah.
this is...
If you have a great saint as your master, like I was blessed to be, and you've got one too through us, right?
Yes.
You can ask. I was told why I'm here this life. I asked. Yeah, we all have a reason why we're here. Usually it is because, what?
We want to be.
We want something. We want something. So, you're on your deathbed a few hours before and you say, okay, next life, I'm going to be real pretty and I'm going to marry when I'm 25 and I'm going to have a wonderful man who's never going to leave me and I'm going to have 6 children. Okay. Oh, okay, 2. All right? We decide that we want something. It's going to pull us right back. All the time. We're never fully happy with what we've got right now, who we are right now. We always want something else. Right? It's part of being human. And as long as we keep wanting something, we'll be human. When we have no more wants and no more needs for something that we want, we don't have to be human anymore. Then you go back to being divine. Okay? Make sense?
So, Devi, do we choose everything before we come here? I mean, how much of it? I thought I read somewhere where Swami Rama said like 50% you choose
Right.
and 50% is...
Because you decide what country you want to live in,
Mhm.
about what year you want to be born,
Mhm.
who you want to, as your family members.
Right.
Well, how exact would that be? Because they have wants too.
Yeah. I'm
So if you
thinking about
say-
that. It's like,
yeah.
how would that work?
Well, it doesn't. That's why it's only about 50%.
Okay.
You get to choose all the main things. Your place of birth, usually parentage or family. Sometimes it might not be your mother and father. It might be the other people who were mother and father before and now they're brother and sister or something like that. Usually find the place is important. And if you're really smart next life, you'll say, and I want my teacher. Okay? Most of us weren't smart enough to do that. Right? Swami Ramatirtha was through this whole country, stopping at one city after the other, met many people. So this life he came back and he went and found them all. Okay? And Swami Jaidev and I were with him in India last life. So he told us, get an American body, I'm going to spend most of my time there. So we did. We set it all up. Every small detail isn't right, like whether you're going to be brilliant and get straight A's in high school. You might have not decided that, but some people do.
Mhm.
So what's really important to you? And if you're on a spiritual path where you want to go quickly, in between lives you might have this idea like, okay, I've done 952 lives and I have 8 more. I don't want 8. Maybe I could squish them all into 4. Well, if you do something like that, you're going to have some pain in this life. Okay? You're going to burn up a lot of karma. So if you chose to do that, it could be a number of things that would happen to you. You might lose a child, you might have a husband who beats you or something like that, you see? To burn up karma, get past it. Because every time we do something, if I come up to give him a slap on the face, I've got karma, bad karma coming to me, right? So either he's going to stand up immediately and slap me right back, then we're even. But usually that doesn't happen, right? Because we're going to walk away with some, I'm pissed at you, and I'm pissed at you, and we walk around with it. So that we carry, there's karma on all of that.
Even our thoughts. Right?
Yeah, definitely our thoughts. So when we come back into the next life, not only did we want to be born to this parent and live in Chicago or whatever, But we've got all that stuff that was in our mind. So at some point I have to come back to either this person if he's there, or someone like Warren that I could do something good to. Okay? Might not be the same person. For very close things like family ties, it'll be the same person. But for something like that, you know, I could pay it off in a number of ways. I could give extra money to the poor for all the bad things I've done. Okay? I can go out of my way to help a neighbor when they're not the nicest neighbors in the world. Okay? That kind of thing. And when you get past all that, and you don't need to keep doing that, then anytime you do anything, you say, Lord, here, whatever I do today, it's yours. You figure it out. And it'll get figured out. So we don't have to worry about it so much. That's why in our ashram one time, there was that snake on the ground, and Swami Rama came up to it and told Rajmani, kill that snake. Well, that's a little unusual because ahimsa. We don't do harm. Swami Rama ordered him, kill that snake. So he did. And 9 months later, a woman that Swamiji had that week in his ashram came, and she had a baby and brought it to Swamiji. And the baby had one of those, you know, where it's all cut here. The lips go up like this, and there's a slice in the center.
The cleft.
Cleft.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cleft palate, right. Brought the baby. And Rajmani happened to see the baby. He said, Swamiji, this poor baby. Swamiji says, this was the snake you killed. Because that person in the past had done everything it needed and then took to be a snake, but wanted another body. Okay? So threw off the laws of the universe a little bit. Interesting how it works. So Swamiji had to take this child to the hospital, get the cleft palate fixed and all, which is what we have. So many, many times when we have children who are retarded or deformed in some way, often that is making up for past karma. Which is, it's usually a saint. Okay.
And what
Right.
about their caretaker? Is that somebody who's burning off karma as well?
Sure. But, you know, it's not so much burning karma, it's balancing it. You know, balancing it. So it's like when Mama was taking care of Aunt Kitty, you know, in Swamiji's book. Remember that? Aunt Kitty was a handful to take care of. She really was. I took care of her for a couple days, you know, and Mama came over and brought her. And it's a bit of work. So Aunt Kitty was a saint, Swamiji told us. He came specifically so Mama could work with her. And Mama was probably burning off bad karma or past karma, but also getting ready for her own death, which was beautiful. Swamiji was there with her while he was with us, 2 different states at the same time. So, and Swamiji says it's very difficult for us, and we shouldn't try to say, oh, you did this because of this. It's not quite that clear. Once you're an enlightened being, then you could see it. It's very clear to you. But don't try to guess, because we could, our brain isn't smart enough for that. We'll really make things up. I'm such a perfect person, so I really stole something from you so to balance your karma. I mean, the mind could do anything, right? So we don't want to go that way. Just do the best you can, and your own, every action you have, give it to the sages. They'll take care of it for you. Put it in the right slot. But when finally everything is finished and you need do nothing, you can be enlightened at that point. Right?
So once you know who you are, does karma end? Or can you still accrue?
Depends on whether you have a body or not.
Ah, really?
Mm-hmm. Because if you have a body, everything you do, even your breathing, is karmic, right? So how many more years are you going to have? And are you going to be absolutely perfect during that time?
Probably not.
Right, probably not. Exactly.
So how do you ever get ahead of karma? I mean,
Most of it is done by when you get into higher states of consciousness, and you're there, and you're doing your practice. You're seeing the beloved there. You're not taking on any karma, but you're sending off incredible vibes, very positive. Okay. And then by the time you're ready to drop the body and your sages come for you, your teacher comes for you, you don't have to come back unless you want to. Or, as Swami Rama does, unless you're willing to come back out of the love in your heart to take care of others. That's why he keeps coming back. Who's Shiva?
One of the triune,
male triune deities in Hinduism, and he's responsible for destruction or transformation.
Mm-hmm. Is there a Shiva in the room?
Mm-hmm.
Where?
behind us.
Yes. He's the potentiality.
Okay. Yes. So that's a statue of dancing Shiva behind us. You all know that one, huh? Okay, so what's Brahma in just one word? Creator. Vishnu, preserver or sustainer. And Shiva, destroyer. Yeah. What was the word you were using?
Transformation.
Well, it is a transformation, but it's normally when we think of transformation, we
Destroy something to create.
yeah. So he's the destroyer in order for transformation to occur. Okay, yeah. Does that make sense? Who is Shiva married to?
Shakti.
Lakshmi.
Hmm?
Durga.
Shakti. Lakshmi.
Parvati. Okay, Parvati. So I was going to tell you the story of their marriage because it's kind of cute. This is where the difference comes between yoga and Hinduism. The yogis know that these are essential powers of the universe, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. The Hindus can't, they started off the religion with people who are not educated, and they just want to sit around and listen to stories at night, okay? So then these forms of energy, they were talked about as gods. Okay? So you have the God who's the creator, the God who's the destroyer, the God who takes care of everything and keeps it all. Okay? So there are a lot of good ideas in that religious doctrine also, because we can apply it to ourselves. So sometimes you might like to get a book about, Brahma or Vishnu or Shiva, or a story about it. And how does it apply? One, how does it apply to the universe? And secondly, how does it apply to me? Because we also have those same forces within ourselves. Sometimes we're not aware of them, but we also create things, right? We preserve them. What do you mean you want to change the poem I just wrote? We preserve them, and sometimes we destroy them. We tear it up and start again. We do that in all aspects of our life. Okay? We do it to our body, to our mind, and to stuff around us. All right? So it's a cute story, I think, of Shiva and Parvati. I have some pages on it. I can't possibly read the whole thing to you, but I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you the wedding part first, because it's so unusual. Did any of you go to an Indian wedding ever? You did? Yes, in India?
No, at the Institute.
Oh, okay. Well, usually in India, the husband comes to the bride's house, and he's riding a mare, and everything's all decorated, and he's all looking beautiful, and he comes with all his friends. So it's usually a bunch of men coming down the street, and they have a little band, is that the word for it? A little, they're playing music as they're coming down the street. and they're going to the bride's house. So here was Shiva coming on a mare, and he's coming to Parvati's house. And there are so many people that wanted to be with Shiva, all his friends and stuff, you know. So they are dressed just like princes, and they're going down the street, and Parvati's mother throws open the door, and she starts saying, "Oh, these men are so beautiful. Look at this silk that they're wearing. Oh, look at all that embroidery." And she's very, very pleased with the whole thing, okay? So she's opening, welcoming them in, and who's the last one to come? Is Shiva. And Shiva is covered with ash from the cremation grounds, okay, because he used to hang out in the cremation grounds. He's got his eyes are flipped back in his head, you know. He's holding a skull, and he's riding on the horse like this. And she goes, "Oh, my daughter Parvati, how come you did this? Why did you pick this idiot of a man? How could he be here? Look at, I'm so embarrassed. It would be better if you never got married." And she's telling her. And she's so upset. So one of his buddies goes back, "Shiva, we're at the house now." And he says, "Oh." And suddenly he's magnificent, shining with these beautiful silk robes on, you know, and he comes in, and suddenly Parvati's mother goes, "Oh, you picked the best husband in the whole world." You know how mothers are, huh? And he's very, very wonderful now, and they actually do the ceremony. Before that, she was thinking that something so horrible was about him that she should not get married at all. So that's the if I could find, but yes, the Shiva Purana is an old book written up by the Hindus, and it has the stories form. It's like baby Jesus. Did any of you ever hear stories of baby Jesus? Yeah. How do we know what happened? No one wrote it down. There were no scholars there. Okay, but it was made up and passed down through time, and that's what the Shiva Purana is, the same kind of thing like that. And they've got books like that on every one of the gods and goddesses, sometimes several of them. Okay, and it's to inspire people. So, once Shiva is finished with his wedding, from that point on, you'll either see Shiva with this dancing figure like this, and if you all know that statue pretty well, huh? Is he dancing on a baby?
No, it's evil or ignorance.
Yes, it's one of the demons. Okay, and this particular one, the image goes that as long as Shiva dances on the evil, no evil can overtake the world. But if Shiva stops dancing, that's the end of the world. So you want him to always keep dancing, okay? Which is kind of interesting. Shiva generally rides on something. Do you know what he rides on? Nandini knows.
A bull,
Yes. Why does Nandini know?
because she's a lady bull.
That's true. We gave her the name taken from the Sanskrit word for the bull of Shiva is Nandi. Okay? So when you go to a Shiva temple, you go up the stairs, and then there's the little house, you know, the little room where the Shiva lingam is. And right outside of that door, there's a bull sitting there. You know, a statue of a bull. Okay? That's Nandi, leads you to Shiva and protects Shiva. So it says, the bull of Dharma has forgiveness for its horns, control of the senses for its ears, the eyes of faith, and the Vedas as its breath. I thought that was an interesting part of the Shiva Purana. Okay, so I want to tell you about their courtship. We've got just a few minutes, but one day Parvati, who is one of the most beautiful women that's ever talked about in India, okay, very, very beautiful, she goes to sleep. And she has an unusual dream. In the dream, she's standing next to Lord Shiva, and she knows she's married to him. Okay? That's her husband. And she wakes up not knowing quite what to do, but saying, that is the strongest dream I've ever had, and the most wonderful dream I've ever had. Okay? So she can't get that idea out of her mind, and she's not supposed to. Okay. So she goes to her dad and tells her dad about it. He says, that's very interesting. Well, the next day, Shiva leaves one of the mountains, and he comes close to their house. So Dad says, okay, Parvati, let's go see Lord Shiva. Yep. So they climb up the mountain, and they bow to Lord Shiva, and he gives them a blessing. And Dad says, Shiva, you should have someone take care of you, at least cook your meals for you. And he says, no, I don't need it. Yes, you should have someone. And something happens to Shiva that he says, all right. So Parvati stays there. Okay? So what she does is she's running up and down to her little hut. She cooks the food for Lord Shiva, gives it to him, cleans up, takes it back. Sort of very much like what I was doing for Swami Rama. Right? Okay? So she's taking care of everything like this. And one day, did you ever hear of Kama, the god of love? Okay. Kama, see if this sounds a little familiar in the West. Kama is a man who walks around with a bow and arrows. And if he hits the arrow into someone, they fall madly in love. Okay? Sound like Cupid, huh? Mm-hmm. Except this is a man instead of that little fat thing with wings. Okay? So Kama is up in the trees there. And he says, ooh, this would make a good couple. And so he shoots the arrow into Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva looks up and he says, who is this most beautiful woman in the whole world? Who are you? I have to have you. You must be my wife. And she runs away because he's getting closer and closer to her body. She runs back home. She's so afraid what's going to happen. He opens his eyes and says, oh, as she's just stepping back, someone has done something to me. And he looks over in the tree and there's Kama. So he uses his third eye to burn Kama into ashes. Okay? Well, of course, Parvati is a little bit scared. She's not going to hang around there too much, so she runs home to Mom and Dad. Okay? And Shiva goes back and says, women. And he sits on the top of his mountain and he goes into meditation. So Parvati's at home. She goes back to sleep, has another dream. She's standing next to Shiva as his wife. And she goes, I don't know about this. What can I do? I can't go back there again. And she says, Shiva is good at some very important things, and one thing he's superb at is meditation. She says, I'm going to beat him at his own game. Right? So she goes to another big hill, some miles away, and she goes to the top of the hill and she starts to live as a hermit. And all day long she meditates. And she meditates and she meditates and she gives up food. So all the different names of Parvati come off of that. Aparna is one. Parna, for example, means a leaf. She was eating leaves, like spinach and stuff. And Aparna means no leaves, you see. So all the different things that she did that way are women's names in India. Okay? So she's fasting and she's just meditating. And one decade goes by and another decade goes by. And in some books you'll hear 100 years went by and another 100 years went by. Okay. And one day Shiva opens his eyes and he says, where's that energy coming from? That is incredible meditative energy. Where's it coming from? Closes his eyes again. And another 100 years goes by and he opens his eyes and he says, that energy is incredible. I've got to find out where that energy is coming from. So he looks around and there on another mountain is all the energy coming from Parvati. So he goes then to her and says, we need to be together. And that's when they become man and wife. And of course then he's put back on this little mare and is taken to the house. But it shows that the symbolism of the whole thing is the spirituality of males, spirituality of the females. It's also heaven and earth. It's back and forth like that for just getting two opposites and putting them together. Okay? And it becomes a long, long story, which we don't have time for now, but eventually Parvati dies. She throws herself into a fire, actually, because of an insult to her husband. Okay? And the female energy becomes known as Shakti, but Parvati is her actual name, and Shiva marries again after that. Okay? But it's an interesting story because it tells us so much about ourselves, that if we really want to be close to the divine, we've got to come up with something to do. So either you cook a really good meal and give it to the divine, or you sit down and meditate and find out who you are, what's inside there. How do you change those vibrations so that God looks at me? That's what she did, and it worked. But this is what we want to do. So the symbolism, you see, is on many, many levels. And sometimes the stories, they're fun to read. They're really good. And we know that they're stories. But what's behind them is very important. Guruji used to tell us that there is never Shiva without Shakti. Never. Shakti means the power of the female. Okay? They're always together. So in every one of us, we have both. And we've been told that by psychologists, right? Your female side and your male side. But the male side also is that image of Shiva. And the female side is that image of Parvati or Shakti. And so she's the side that works hard to get what she wants, to get her spirituality. The male side just exists. Okay? And Swami Rama made our life that way. Swami Jaidev was to sit there and think, and I was to run around the place and do all this work. Okay? So your female side might not be as dominant as mine, but it tells us quite a bit. What do we need to do in order to balance ourselves perfectly, so that we can realize that we are divine? So we don't have to keep coming back to these weird roles we pick for ourselves between lives, right? Because I think next life I might want green eyes and red hair. So it would be better if I don't have those thoughts, right? If I'm totally lost in the beloved. It takes some work, but we can do it. All right? So shall we meditate together?